Integrity Seed by Litrpg Saint. A Goodwill series. A system for hope and change. A wizard better at revenge than responsibility. A son who just wants to fit in a world filled with struggle. Choices will be made, consequences finalized. This is that story.
Hey, glad you decided to check this channel out. The Bored Rabbit is a place of fantasy and might. Stories for you to enjoy. I'm trying something a little bit different here, and I hope it works out. Chill here, suspend reality, and allow your imagination to fill in the world while I administer these concepts. I'm new to this sort of thing, so grow with me, and let's experience this together. Prologue. The Search for Answers, Volume 1, The Outbound, by Litrpg III. The game and rhyme. The worlds were finished. Mysteries were released upon the world because of a great yearning. Corruption grew in small areas first, like a crack in a house, a cut in the skin, a fissure in the ground, a cleft in the mountain, a trench in the sea, a grove in the trees, a rip in space. Good was comfortable and lazy. Good decided that the corruption started too small. The energy required to fix it was more than the harm it could produce. Pollution grew in small areas, in the water, the sky, and the land. In the depths of the water, it started at the very bottom. Good decided that it required too much energy to go to the depths and fix it. The pollution was so deep in the waters that it would not matter for thousands of years. So it decided that now was not the time to act. The sky was vast, and one cloud out of many was too hard to find. Good decided that it would handle the problem when they could easily perceive the cloud out of the many. Land was acting different in what grew from it, but it would require too much work to excavate to find the problem. Good's mindset was vigilant, knowing something was happening. The world was changing, but so slowly that it could be left for a time in the far future, according to the reports. When the corruption appeared on an easier level, Good would trace it back to his origins. The option was decided as good. Good waited, but did not notice the wane. Over time, the splinter happened that corruption and pollution used to intermingle. Good did not notice the waxing of the inhabitants of the water, sky, and land. Good was no longer at the forefront of the denizens' minds. Of course, there were good people who fought against the corruption and pollution. They fought in secrecy, thinking they had the greater good at the core of their concept while hiding the truth from the world. Good noticed people could not make the best decisions due to being uninformed. Toxicity was one such union made from pollution and corruption. Toxic was a form of magic. People only saw the greatness, the power. Slowly, the world kept moving. Good needed to inform. Good needed to instruct. Good needed a people to combat evil. Stories like this are numerous, all starting with the same concept, good and evil. In my travels, my keen observation was able to capture truth in different realms. My investigative prowess is of the highest order and should not be debated for pieces. Instead, note this as fact, that good is present in the world, and it is interconnected throughout the known and unknown realms. My father once said, which leads me to believe that all beings are capable to perceive beyond their stature the truths of the world. He said, when good sleeps, then evil creeps. When good wakes, evil waits. When good sees, then evil flees. When evil gains, then good wanes. Evil reigns when good is slain. As a kid, I just took it as a rhyme. Now, as an outbound, to make it to places which my dad has never seen, with some of the same principles being told in these worlds. I came across a game the other day in a different realm, which stirred my mind to the rhyme given by my dad ages ago. They called it red light, green light, which made me think about how evil creeps when good sleeps. When good wakes up, it manages to see the evil creep up. Good can then take it out. If evil managed to creep up on good while dodging its attempts to see it coming, then it loses. Evil reigns. Evil may change clothes, speak nice, and act kind. Evil cheats, steals, and blames others. Beware sleeping on evil, because when it gets into position, the world will be hard-pressed to sneak upon it. Games and rhymes are more telling than you could believe. See past it just being a game or rhyme. Seriously. Look more into what is going on. Check it once, twice, and if you feel you just cannot capture the truth just yet, place it somewhere for you to remember and dwell on later. The reason why I, Ladaxis III, study good and evil so much is because the meaning of life is also possibly intertwined in the battle between good and evil, thereby making the understanding of such events more important than winning the casual conflict and moving on. Chapter 1. Preparation. In a house far outside any reasonable possibility of communication, Arkistan sat on his own personally made couch rock. It only took a few legendary materials, but it was his own chair of comfort, made malleable to fit his extreme requirements for a battle-ridden, successful wizard such as himself. Of course, he could have bought a house and all the comfort items he could have wanted. It would have been better for his body, but now was not the time for extreme comfort. Any items made by someone else could be tracked. Usually, it mattered not. But while he sat breathing in the fresh air of the pocket space, engineered with plants and artificial light to create an equilibrium of natural gases in a life-sustaining cycle, he did not want to be disturbed or found. Last week, his name came up on a list of SARS. It is a duty to be a tutorial king for a new batch of upcoming youth for several different species, usually aligned with a certain faction. Arkistan hated lizardkin. Shapeshifters are useful, but his past was full of the worst reptilian encounters ever. Goblins and orcs was on the dislike list, and there was no way he was going to be a SAR for any reptilians. He would most likely be sentenced to death for killing the new initiate. Luckily, he had a divine pipe that helped him keep the madness down. Smoking his pipe, he remembered everything he had to do to get it. All divine items required that no one died while trying to achieve the item. If you fell short of that, it would have been mythic. Every puff sent a certain degree of satisfaction that allowed him to remain level-headed. It would last a week, and he didn't have to smoke it now because he received nothing extra except for the feeling of accomplishment, a sense of pride. Now he would just have to wait it out. He looked out, only seeing white. If he didn't know any better, he would think he was in a waiting room. The waiting room that people spoke of before being God, to have that talk about how life was, pure white surrounding, with the only thing of color would be his little abode that allowed him to live there. Waiting is exactly what he was doing though, so they would pick someone else. Time passed, and he closed his eyes.
Arkistan fly. Arkistan fly. Arkistan fly. You have been chosen. You are now.
His eyes shot open and the scroll out of his book burned away. He quickly closed the book and shouted in the sky, "Worth it!" Pages were valuable to a wizard, and he just lost one. Of course, you could expand your book, but you could fall prey to a skip page. This book was a temp, basically an add-on, and now it would lose some utility. There's no way the guy personally intervened. I can only hope it was a messenger. He muttered to himself while running into his house to activate his contingencies. I have been planning for this. I can do this. Go through it step by step. He chanted to himself. Dreams is the realm of God. Nothing was capable of sending him a message in his personal mind space, and he not noticed it until it was too late. It was an incomplete message, so maybe just a little bit more and he could be passed over from having to do this duty. His pipe was divine, so he could not be under any ill influences. Being under bad influences was the only way something could tamper into your personal mind space. He felt the wind pick up, and he ran to the wind chime located on the porch while switching out the ingredient in his pipe for the tuft of a berserker. Arkistan knew his body and been on the path of a wizard most of his life. A wizard used ingredients of plants and animals. The abilities of the ingredients were then fused to the user. The fuse is a term that wizards use to sell and buy ingredients to use to smoke in their pipe.
Tuft of a berserker. Increased speed by 20%. Furious mind denies multitasking mentally to solely focus on one thing, increasing evasion and critical hits. Furious mind blocked due to divine item.
He knew the results of the tuft of a berserker and knew the mental effects would cancel out, making him one of the strongest wizards. Arsanus one. There were ways to block out mental effects, but none greater than his divine pipe, unless someone else had a divine item, and these things were beyond out of the ordinary. He grabbed the wind chime and he threw it towards the wind, and activated a page in his spellbook and shouted, "Misdirection!" Misdirection was a spell that did its best to confuse teleportation users, sending them somewhere else. The wind chime boosted this effect and activated acquiring the wind while picking up in sound. He was sweating now, frantic, and due to his level-headedness, he knew something was not right. He should not be sweating. He should not be getting tired. The sound from the wind chime was deafening. The sound was keeping him up, and it was entirely unintended, but he was thankful nonetheless. The wind should have been whisked away, but it just gathered. He should have found some chaos items, because those and divine items were the only things that could work against messengers. His wind chime was legendary, but he was hoping for a weaker employee of God, a courier, a prophet. A prophet would probably cutting it close in terms of power. He was weaker, but at least he could hold the person off for a while. He was guessing. Then the wind stopped growing and started to settle. The wind chime fell and broke. Then there was no more wind. He waited. A minute passed by. Then a few minutes. Then a half hour. He started cackling out loud with his back bent and his mouth open and his tongue sticking out. He felt better now, and he was not so tired anymore. Thinking back on his laughter, he knew his son Vix would say, "Stop laughing before people think we're evil." He missed his son. He was supposed to be his heir even though he did not marry his mother. He tried for resurrection, but revenge was the only thing he was able to achieve so far. He started to change out his ingredients in his pipe when all of a sudden the world just lost its color. There was no way he was important enough for this much work, and he knew divine energy was so powerful that too much would open gateways, allow leakage, or maybe even cracks. Remember, God, that I did your divine quest, and this would only kill me. Thinking of something else to to delay while slowly walking back to his house with his mind on his artboard of bewilderment and paintbrush of naivete. Very few encountered the eye of God and lived to tell the tale. Innocence in form of items was the only thing possible to divert this much attention away. In his mind, if he had to go through with this, he was dead either way, even level-headed. His heart would not let him instruct a lizard. Plus, life rarely served any purpose without a son. Dying over recruits is a stupid way to go, and it was better to go out fighting against the mad serpent. By the time he made it back in the house, it started raining color or some sort of colorful substance. He remembered reading something from an old warlock named Gnurga about how if you draw a character or wrote a book that his blood was ink and how from ink you could get every color. Gnurga was good at saying something so profoundly stupid that it just felt it had to have some truth to it. Still creeping to his art room, he was thinking about all his precautions, even setting up a place in a inn within, basically a dungeon safe spot, because usually no entity can trespass illegally except it went a step deeper. The money he parted with was a ridiculous sum, but when you only care about food, water, and shelter, life can become what you make it. After he got rid of the excess, he also became less of a target. The truth is, there is no running from God, but you can make it easier for him to choose someone else. At least that's what his dad told him before he lost his life on a divine quest. He made it in his art room when his hand was stretching out for his brush when a shake made the pen drop to the floor. He puffed on his pipe 2 times and inhaled more of his Jackrabbit Delight.
Jackrabbit Delight. Increased blood circulation allows for quick reactions, increased perception, increased senses of natural and the unnatural. Extended calf boost gives extra push to start speed, allowing your first dash to be faster. Lasciviousness makes sex desire increase around potential mates. Lasciviousness block due to divine item.
This was a do or die moment. Here he had to transcend the mortal mind and drift into the unconsciousness. Do it without thought. Then the door shut. I would not do that if I were you. Just a waste of material. The thing about increasing while using the pipe was that you could overdose. Enter a state of madness to a point that let your instinct take control like a berserker state. Your body will reject it before you reach a point of suicide, but there was a thin line of extreme power for a limited time that could be gained. The madness would not affect him, but the stat increase would. 2 more puffs and a bead of sweat started dripping down his forehead. You know, that wind chime was a good trick. These encounters we have with normies usually go easy. On his 10th puff. You know, I never fancied myself a normie. Probably below normal, useless, worthless even, said Arkistan, with a pinch of frustration. Doesn't matter. There is no dodging a decree, and you, Sir Arkistan Fly, shall report for duty. With blood circulation increasing with each puff, Sir Arkistan fell to the floor. Lentil shook his head and reworked time to change Arkistan ingredients in his pipe to a placebo tuff. Then started time back again while transferring him to the Hall of Service.
End of chapter 1. Thank you very much.